I found the envelope on a Wednesday morning, my wife's handwriting, my name on the front, and underneath it, 5 words that changed everything. Don't show our son. My name is Leonard Grady. I'm 67 years old, retired after 35 years on the floor of a manufacturing plant in Columbus, Ohio. And 2 months after I buried my wife, Dorothy, I was standing in our bedroom closet holding a letter I didn't know existed. Good day, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Please listen to this till the end and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I had been putting off cleaning out Dorothy's side of the closet for weeks. Every time I opened that door, I just closed it again. But that Wednesday I told myself enough, so I started going through her boxes, old tax records, winter coats she hadn't worn in years. And then, tucked behind a stack of shoe boxes in the back corner, I found it. A plain white envelope with my name written on the front in Dorothy's careful handwriting. I didn't open it right there. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at it for a long time. 43 years of marriage, and she still managed to surprise me. Let me give you some background so you understand the full picture. Dorothy and I met in the fall of 1980 in Columbus, Ohio. She was an office bookkeeper. I did maintenance at a manufacturing plant, same one I stayed at until I retired. We weren't rich people. We raised our son Philip in a modest house on Carver Street, drove used cars, took vacations to the lake, comfortable, not fancy. Dorothy passed in February from a heart condition she had been managing for years. By the end, she knew what was coming. I was holding her hand when she went. Philip was in the hospital parking lot on a phone call with his wife Sylvia. I never forgot that. The grief wasn't loud, it was just heavy. Everywhere. I went through the motions the way you do, thank you cards, casserole dishes from neighbors, phone calls I didn't want to take, all of it on autopilot. Philip and Sylvia started calling more after the funeral. At first I thought they were just checking in, but the calls had a pattern. Philip would mention casually, always casually, that he and Sylvia were stretched thin financially, that his mother had always said they'd be taken care of someday. Sylvia asked once whether I had thought about simplifying things. They offered to help me go through Dorothy's paperwork. When I said I could manage it myself, there was a pause on the line that said more than anything else. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Grief makes people strange. That's what I kept telling myself. Then I found the envelope. I took it to the kitchen table, made a cup of coffee, and sat down. Inside was a handwritten note, a small brass key, and a slip of paper with a name and an address. First Central Bank, 4480 Harmon Avenue. Branch manager, Gerald Whitfield. Safe deposit box. Dorothy had a safe deposit box I knew nothing about. I read her note twice, then a third time. Len, she wrote. She always called me Len when she was being serious. There are things I should have told you sooner. Everything in this box is yours and yours alone. Please go see Gerald Whitfield before you speak to anyone else, especially Philip. I love you. I'm sorry it took me so long to be brave enough. Dorothy, who had handled every hard thing in our life with more steadiness than I ever had, she needed courage to tell me something. That phrase kept me up the entire night. I got to First Central Bank when the doors opened at 9 the next morning. I asked for Gerald Whitfield at the front desk. The young woman's expression shifted just slightly, the way someone looks when they have been told to expect a particular visitor. She came back a minute later and walked me to a small office in the back. Gerald Whitfield was around 58, calm, silver-framed glasses, the kind of man who dealt in other people's private matters every day and knew how to be quiet about it. He stood up and shook my hand and said, "Mr. Grady, I'm glad you came in. Dorothy said you might take a few months." He had known her. She had come here for years, and I had never known. He led me to the vault room and left me alone with the box. I opened it and had to sit down. 3 things inside. First, a bound ledger in Dorothy's handwriting, page after page, documenting investments going back to 2003, mutual funds, a rental property in Kentucky I had never heard of, stock positions, every entry dated, every total clean and precise. The final number, updated 6 weeks before she died, $390,000. I read that number 4 times. Second item, the deed to the Kentucky property. A small rental house generating steady income routed to a separate account in both our names, but with a P.O. box address I didn't recognize listed for correspondence. Third, a longer sealed letter addressed to me. I won't share all of it, some of it is between me and Dorothy, but the core of what she wrote was this. She had watched Philip change after he married Sylvia. She had watched Sylvia treat their future inheritance as something already owed. She had watched her son become someone who called his parents differently depending on what he needed. And she had been afraid, slowly, quietly afraid, that if the full extent of what we had saved was known, it wouldn't be safe. Not with 2 people who had already started treating it as theirs before I was even gone. She hadn't hidden it from me. She had hidden it through me, kept it invisible until the right moment, until I needed it. The woman had been protecting me from our own son. from the specific kind of damage that doesn't come from strangers. It comes from family who have decided what you owe them. I sat in that vault room for a long time. That afternoon, Philip called, easy tone, no urgency. He mentioned again that Sylvia's contact, some financial consultant, was available whenever I was ready. He said he just wanted to make sure I wasn't dealing with everything alone. I told him I appreciated it. I kept my voice the same as always. Then I hung up and called Nadine Okafor. Nadine had been Dorothy's attorney for over a decade. I found her name in Dorothy's personal records that same day. She was 61, ran a small office above a dry cleaning shop on Fenmore Street, and had the kind of quiet confidence that comes from 30 years of watching people underestimate her. I drove over that afternoon and spread everything out on her desk. Photographs I had taken of the ledger, the deed, Dorothy's letters. She read through all of it without rushing and asked me 3 clarifying questions. Then she sat back and said, "Dorothy set this up carefully, Leonard. The account is legally yours. The deed transfers cleanly under the will. There is no ambiguity here." She tapped the photograph of the ledger. "What you're describing with Philip and Sylvia isn't a legal threat yet, but it could become one fast if you're not ahead of it." We spent 2 hours together that afternoon. By the end, I had a plan. Nadine would file formal probate on all assets, including the previously undisclosed ones, with full documentation. Everything transferred solely into my name. The Kentucky property would be professionally appraised and managed. And critically, we would create a formal record that I had sought independent legal counsel, that no other party had been involved in my decisions. That last piece was the shield. Over the next 2 weeks, I executed every step quietly. I met with a financial advisor named Carolyn Briggs that Nadine trusted. I signed the documents. I had the Kentucky property assessed. All of it while continuing to answer Philip's calls the same way I always had. Warm, calm, nothing unusual. It was Sylvia who figured it out first. She called on a Wednesday afternoon, and her voice had changed. The warmth was gone. She said she had heard from someone at the bank, she didn't say who, that I had been in to see Gerald Whitfield. She said she didn't want to make assumptions, but that she and Philip felt they had a right to be involved in any major financial decisions. She used the phrase family decisions 3 times. I kept my voice even. I told her Dorothy had named me sole executor and that I was handling matters with legal counsel. I told her she was welcome to review the probate filing when it became public record. 20 minutes later, Philip called. His voice had that tight quality I remembered from when he was a teenager and felt cornered. He said I was being secretive. He said his mother would have wanted him involved. He said he had rights as the only heir. "I'm not gone yet, Philip," I said quietly, "and neither is your mother's will, which names me as sole beneficiary." There was a pause, then his voice went flat. "We know about the box, Dad. We know it's more than what was in the will. If you're not going to be reasonable, we're going to have to look at whether Mom was in the right state of mind when she set this up. Mental incapacity. They were going to challenge the estate on the grounds that Dorothy had not been competent. My hands were cold. My voice was not. "That's your right," I said. "Nadine Okafor is my attorney. Her number is publicly listed. All communication from this point goes through her." I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a while after that. I won't pretend I wasn't shaken. There is something specific about being threatened by your own child, something that doesn't feel like anything else in the world, but underneath the fear was something harder. Dorothy's words sitting right there in my memory. "I'm sorry it took me so long to be brave enough." She had been afraid too. She had still done the right thing. I could do no less. A few days later, I drove out to see my older brother Rodney in Dayton. I walked his dog. I ate his cooking. I let myself just be somebody's little brother for a few days instead of a widower in the middle of a legal fight. When I got back, I was steadier. The week after I returned, something happened that I had not expected. My granddaughter Lorraine Phillip and Sylvia's daughter, 24 years old and living across town, sent me a text out of nowhere. "Grandpa, I don't know what's going on, but if you need anything, please call me." I called her. We talked for an hour. She was careful with her words. She didn't go after her parents directly, but she confirmed in the quiet way of someone choosing every word with care that there had been a lot of conversation in that house about money and about what Grandma had left behind. She said she hadn't been comfortable with it. She said she was glad I called. I didn't ask her to take sides. I just asked her to stay in my life. She said she wasn't going anywhere. Then Lorraine told me something else. She had been at her parents' house a few days earlier, and Philip had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he stepped outside. She saw a text exchange between him and Sylvia on the screen. One line from Sylvia stopped her cold. "The old man won't fight back. He never does." Lorraine took a photo of the screen and sent it to me. I sat with that for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Nadine without a single word of explanation. Nadine called me back within the hour. Her voice had that particular steadiness of someone who had just been handed exactly what she needed. "Hold on to this," she said. "We're going to need it." I didn't feel angry when I read that message. I felt something quieter than anger. The specific sadness of seeing a thing for exactly what it is. Sylvia had never seen me. She had seen an old man who fixed machines and trusted people and would fold under pressure. She had made a calculation about who I was. She was wrong. And Dorothy had known she would be wrong. That was why the envelope existed in the first place. A week later, Sylvia showed up at my door on a Saturday morning. She was carrying a bakery box, pastries from the good place on Riverside Drive, the ones Dorothy used to love. She was dressed just casual enough to look like she hadn't tried. Philip was behind her, hands in his pockets, looking tired in a way that might have been real. I stepped back and let them in. I put the kettle on. I set the pastries on a plate. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had read Dorothy's letter, where I had made my decisions, where I had cried alone at 4 in the morning. I knew every scratch on that table. It was my table. I sat at the head of it. Sylvia opened gently. She talked about how hard the last few months had been for everyone, about how grief distorts things and makes people say things they regret. She talked about family, how at the end of the day, family is all any of us really have. She mentioned Dorothy warmly, telling a story about Philip and his mother that was probably half invented. She was good at this. I will give her that. She had the ability to make a rehearsed thing sound like it just came to her. Then, by small steps so smooth you might not notice them, the conversation shifted direction. She mentioned that she and Philip had spoken with a family mediator. Not a lawyer, she was quick to say, just someone who helps families get through difficult transitions. She suggested a mediated conversation might be healthier than going through attorneys. She said that word, attorneys, the way you say something unpleasant. She said Dorothy surely hadn't intended to create conflict, that she would have wanted harmony. She said there was probably enough for everyone and there was no reason for things to be difficult. Enough for everyone. There it was. The pastries were a down payment on a different kind of conversation. One where I would sit at her table and be gently, warmly persuaded to hand over what Dorothy had legally and deliberately left to me alone. I noticed that in 40 minutes of careful conversation, Sylvia never once asked how I was doing. Not in passing, not as filler. My well-being did not come up. Then Philip leaned forward. His voice was lower, more direct than Sylvia's. He said he wasn't trying to take anything from me. He said he just wanted to feel like his mother had thought about him, had cared about his future. His voice cracked a little on the word mother, and I held my own reaction carefully, the way you hold something you don't want to drop, because I believed on some level that the pain was real. Philip had lost his mother. Whatever Sylvia had shaped him into over the years, that loss was genuine. But genuine pain does not give anyone the right to someone else's property. And the structure of this conversation, the pastries, the mediator, the carefully timed emotion, was not the structure of reconciliation. It was the structure of a negotiation where I was supposed to feel that saying no was cruelty. I had spent 35 years dealing with people on a shop floor. I knew when I was being managed. I let them finish. I didn't rush them. I let every word land. Then I folded my hands on the table. "I love you, Philip," I said. "That's not in question." I looked at him steadily. "But I'm not going to discuss the estate outside of proper legal channels, not because I'm hostile to you, because your mother asked me to handle things carefully, and I intend to do that." Sylvia's expression shifted just a flicker, quickly controlled. Then Philip's voice changed too. The crack in it was gone, replaced by something flat. "Do you understand that if you refuse to work with us, we will file the incapacity challenge? Do you know how that looks? A man your age making major financial decisions alone, refusing his own family's involvement." There it was. The mask off. "I understand," I said. "Nadine Okafor has already prepared a response. I'd suggest you speak with your own attorney before you decide to move forward." Sylvia straightened in her chair. "We have documentation, Leonard, correspondence from the last year of Dorothy's life that suggests she was not always thinking clearly. We have people who will say so. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment, not rage. Something colder and quieter than rage. Absolute certainty. I knew they were bluffing. Dorothy's medical records were clean. Gerald Whitfield had met with her regularly for nearly a decade and would say so. The ledger itself, updated just 6 weeks before she died, was the work of a precise and organized mind. Whatever they had, it was not enough, and I was fairly sure they knew that too. This threat was a last pressure point deployed because all the softer approaches had failed. "Then file," I said. They left without finishing their coffee. Sylvia picked up her purse with the controlled movement of someone holding something larger in check. Philip didn't look at me on the way out. Not from cruelty, I thought. From shame. That was the part that stayed with me after the door closed. I stood at the kitchen window and watched Philip's car back out of the driveway. My heart was going faster than I let on. I won't pretend otherwise. Being threatened by your own child is not something you get used to. It moved through me like cold water, but underneath it was something else. Every threat they made tightened something in me another degree, like a bolt being set. I thought about Dorothy's letter, about the 11 years she had spent building something invisible, so that this moment right here would not destroy me. Then I called Nadine. They threatened to file. I said, "Let them," she said. "We're ready." I believed her. What I didn't tell Nadine yet was what else had surfaced that week. She had been doing quiet background work on Sylvia's early communications with that mediator she had mentioned, the one she described as neutral. It turned out the mediator was not neutral at all. He was someone Sylvia had worked with before in a business dispute. And in the emails Sylvia had sent him in the early weeks after Dorothy's passing, before any pretense of reconciliation, she had laid out her strategy in plain language. She described the undisclosed assets as leverage. She referred to the mediation plan as a way to get him to the table before he lawyers up fully. And in one email, she had referred to me as the old man who won't push back, her own words, written down existing in the world, now regardless of what she wished. Nadine presented those emails to me 2 days before the hearing. I read them 3 times. I thought about the pastries on my kitchen table. I thought about Sylvia's warm voice, her careful clothes, her embellished story about Philip and his mother, all of it planned, all of it in writing. I set the papers down. I didn't feel anger. I felt the quiet final click of something locking into place. The incapacity challenge was filed on a Monday morning in July. Nadine called me before I finished my first cup of coffee. She sounded exactly the way she always sounded. Precise, unhurried, faintly satisfied, like someone watching an opponent make the move she had been expecting all along. "They filed," she said. "We're ready." The hearing was small the way probate court usually is. No jury, no crowd. Just the judge, the attorneys, a court reporter, and the 4 of us. Philip looked at me when I walked in. Something moved across his face that I couldn't name. Then he looked away. Sylvia did not look at me at all. She was studying a document in front of her with the focused attention of someone who had decided that eye contact was a concession she could not afford. Nadine presented our case without any drama. She walked the judge through Dorothy's medical records from her final 3 years, cognitive evaluations from both her cardiologist and her primary care physician, neither of whom had found any evidence of impairment. She introduced the signed letter from Gerald Whitfield at First Central Bank, attesting that he had met with Dorothy regularly for nearly a decade and had observed no confusion, no unusual behavior, nothing that suggested anything other than a clear and capable mind. She presented the ledger from the safe deposit box, entries dated and cross-referenced and totaled with precision, updated just 6 weeks before Dorothy passed. A person losing their grip on reality does not maintain records like that. Anyone looking at those pages would understand that immediately. Then Nadine introduced the emails. Sylvia's attorney asked for a recess the moment he saw them. The judge granted 10 minutes. During that break, I sat still and watched the composed front between Philip and Sylvia come apart. She was speaking to her attorney in a fast, low voice, her hand moving in tight gestures. Philip was not looking at anyone. He was sitting the way people sit when something inside them has gone quiet. Not calm, emptied. I recognized that look. I had sat that way myself in our bedroom closet, holding an envelope I hadn't opened yet. When the hearing resumed, Sylvia's attorney requested a continuance to review the new materials. The judge denied it. The denial was flat and left no room for argument. Philip took the stand briefly. Nadine cross-examined him about specific conversations he had claimed showed Dorothy's confusion. She asked him to give dates. She asked him to describe exactly what was said. He couldn't, not because he was making everything up. I believe he genuinely remembered moments of Dorothy being tired, being slower, being worn down by illness. But Sylvia had built a legal argument on what were, in truth, the ordinary hard days of a sick woman, not cognitive decline. Under cross-examination, those moments collapsed back to their actual size. At one point, Philip said, halting, "My mother, I just think she wasn't herself near the end." Nadine asked quietly, "Did you raise your concerns about your mother's mental state with any of her physicians while she was still alive?" A pause long enough that the court reporter's fingers stopped moving. "No," Philip said. "Did you contact her cardiologist, her primary care doctor, any medical professional with these concerns?" "No." "Did you mention these concerns to your father at any point during your mother's illness?" A longer pause. Philip's jaw moved the way it used to when he was a boy working out whether to tell the truth about something. "No," he said. "So these concerns about your mother's mental capacity arose after her death," Nadine said. It was not a question. Yes. Thank you. Nothing further. The judge ruled that afternoon. The petition was denied in full. Dorothy's estate remained exactly as filed, wholly in my name exactly as she had intended. The judge noted that the evidence of Dorothy's mental clarity was thorough and consistent. and that the petition had been undermined by the timing and circumstances of its filing. That last phrase, the timing and circumstances, I think Sylvia understood it more fully than anyone else in that room. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and let out a long, slow breath, the kind that had been waiting months to happen. Outside the window, the July afternoon was bright and ordinary. Pigeons on the courthouse steps. A man eating a sandwich on a bench. The world going on, not particularly interested in verdicts. I drove home. The consequences came quietly over the weeks that followed. Sylvia's employer, a mid-sized accounting firm, became aware of the fraudulent email she had sent in my name to the bank. By September, she had been let go. She did not find comparable work quickly. That is how it goes in a city this size when something like that moves through the professional network. I heard it from my neighbor Florence. I received it with the same sadness I had come to feel about everything connected to Sylvia. I never wanted her humiliated. I only ever wanted what Dorothy left me. That those two things ended up connected was her doing, not mine. Philip called me 2 weeks after the hearing. He wasn't angry. His voice was flat in a way I hadn't heard before, stripped of the strategic tone Sylvia had calibrated in him over the years. He sounded for the first time in a long time like himself. He said he was sorry. He said he had let someone else do his thinking for him, and he knew that wasn't an excuse. He said he had been thinking about his mother, about who she actually was, separate from what Sylvia had told him her savings were supposed to mean. I let him talk until he ran out of words. "Are we okay, Dad?" he asked. The question was small and unguarded, and for a moment I heard the boy underneath all the years of adjustment and redirection. "We're not okay right now," I said, "but I'm not done with you. Do you understand what I mean by that?" A long pause. "Yes," he said. "Then give it time and go talk to someone real, not a mediator Sylvia hired." He said he would, quietly, without performing it. By December his calls had started to sound more like my son again. He was seeing a therapist. He wasn't asking for anything, just calling. I was answering. I won't wrap that up neatly because it isn't neat. Rebuilding is just a long series of ordinary phone calls that slowly start to feel like trust again. On Christmas Eve, I went out to the backyard and started clearing Dorothy's vegetable garden. It had gone to weeds over the year. I didn't finish that night, but I started, and that felt like the right thing to do. Dorothy knew I always trusted people too easily. She was right about that. But she trusted me with all of this, and that said more about what she thought of me than anything she ever put into words. I intend to be worthy of it. If this story moved you, if you have ever had someone in your own family mistake your grief for weakness, leave a comment below, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the people trying to take advantage of you are counting on you staying quiet. Thank you for listening.